Hi, this is Kumar from Greenville, North Carolina, and we have Catherine and Mathews with us on our Facebook group, Understanding Worldviews. And we're back here with Matthew, and welcome back.
Thank you, Kumar. Thank you, Catherine. And we are excited to be here. Certainly, this last 1 week, maybe couple of weeks, is becoming more and more central to what I call the economic history of this planet Earth. So we'll come to that in a minute. But the things going on in the Middle East and in Europe, all of it seem to point to one thing. For example, uh, Trump basically came and he raised tariff, and the Western world is certainly being divided at this point of time. Trump basically has announced that for him, he's going to be a transactional president. Friends don't matter, and enemies. I think he's focused on singling out China. So that seems to be the logic, I think. And I'm not here to either support or defend. All I'm telling is that this seems to be happening. And it seems to be right on course for certain world events that the Bible seems to say this is how the story is going to go. So before getting ahead of myself, let's just look at what has Trump done. Trump basically raised tariff on everyone. And he basically is telling, hey, uh, I don't care whether you are a friend or a foe, but uh, it's more and more becoming clear that uh, he doesn't think that the world is under threat from Russia or USSR or any of that. He thinks that Europe and Russia can find peace, but most European leaders don't think that way. And there is some credit that we have to give to the European leaders. If it was easy to solve the Ukraine war, by now they should have agreed to Trump is here, Putin says Trump is my friend, Trump says Putin is my friend, and suddenly uh, Putin is not changing his behavior one bit. So everybody has got reasons to say, is this all real? This friendship between Putin and Trump. Number one. Number two, uh, US has been a rich country, has done a lot of good, but it has done good within the context of the European countries, Canada, Mexico. They are all kind of together, one umbrella. Japan belonged to that particular grouping. And yet, Trump was standing as a candidate for a long time. I think even from 1980s. I don't remember when he first stood as a US presidential candidate. But the point is that the first part he used to say, Japan is the one that US need to compete against, and nobody listened. But now that he's the president, he's got a point in the sense that China is a threat to the world order. And the reason why I'm telling this is very simple. Uh, Whatever money the American taxpayer gives to the government, a part of it goes to China as what you call interest payment for the 800 billion they have invested in American bonds. So that money straight away goes to the Chinese military. Now nobody can reverse it, because this is an agreed upon, you know, the economic system has been developed based on logic. Uh, so how do America come out and say, no, the 800 billion China has invested in America, we are not going to honor it. He was willing to do that in the first presidency. So in the second presidency, it seems as though he's telling the world, I'm going to ignore the past. I'm going to restart the process. And therein lies the problem. For example, Canada, America, and Europe together worked to, and Australia included, sorry, Australia included, together solve the problem of Second World War. Second World War was a major problem in the world from 1939 to 1945. According to the words of Jesus, whatever we think about it, after 1878 years, no people ever has come back into history like the Jews in 1948. It is less than 3 years from the close of Second World War to Israel coming into existence. So then we know in the Jewish scriptures they have this prophet called Ezekiel. He is the one who said dry bones to mighty army. That book is what we are ourselves talking about. But ultimately, this small nation, not only in 1948, not only in 1956, the Suez Crisis, but in 1967, in a 6 day war, reorganized the map of the world. When I say map of the world, you would say, really? Did they just conquer Jerusalem? No, no. That's not why I'm saying the map of the world. Whatever we think in history, 11 men and maybe about uh, 50 women and 70 other followers told a man rose from the dead. This is how the scandal of Christianity started. The whole thing is that he said, I will come back into history when the fig tree blossoms. And the fig tree stood for the nation Israel. Now, I've covered a lot of history from AD, somewhere AD 32 to I'm coming to 1948. From 1948 to 1967. Now, the current Gaza war started by saying the Al Aqsa flood or the Temple Mount. This is what we call the words of Daniel suddenly is becoming very significant. So, what is Trump doing? That is the next question. So, Trump currently has got Netanyahu visiting him the second time, I believe, and he's giving uh, Israel a false confidence. And the false confidence is, see, it took all of the West power to defeat Germany. Whatever we think of Second World War, this character that we call as Hitler, if he had retired in 1939, he would have certainly been either the number two or the number three most important German politician of the 20th century. I doubt whether he would have been number one. That's what I think. But he could have been number one as well. In the sense, he turned the country around, brought them out of what do you call financial collapse, organized, all that. But today, we use the word evil kind of synonymous with Hitler. Why? From 1939 to 1945, he revealed to the world there was some kind of a evil, demonic power that operated through him. Now, Moses, the real Jewish leader, I wouldn't call him the first Jew, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their children. But think about Moses. Moses is the one who lays out the land covenant, even though God talks to Abraham about land being given in Genesis 15. This land is going to be yours and your kids. So now I'm jumping to the story of Jesus, okay? He's crucified. His disciples are spreading all across the world. And in AD 70, Jerusalem is destroyed by the Romans. It is in anger, the Romans basically say, there is no Israel, there is no Judea. They call that land. There was one more set of events, 135 AD. They rename it Syria, I think it's Palestina, something like that. It is referring to the Philistines. There was never Palestinians in history. There were Arabs. There was never a Palestine. So that's what we need to understand. this is very real. What is happening in the Middle East and what Trump is doing, I'm going to explain in a very particular way. The way I'm going to explain it is in the Six-Day War, in 6 days, Israel conquered a lot of territory. Then the defeated Arabs were led by Gamal Abdul Nasser. He had an assistant, Anwar Sadat. He is the one who launches the 1973 Yom Kippur War. It is a very interesting event. And this is the follow up book, Kumar, that I am promising to our audience, to Dry Bones to Mighty Army, The Expected, Unexpected. So God is doing something here. And God is basically saying, I plan to bring my son back into history. The way I'm doing it is through the financial reorganization of the world. So, what is Trump doing? Like in 1973 to 1979, if you remember history, Nixon, resigns in the Watergate scandal, and post that his vice president becomes the president, and Jimmy Carter becomes the next president in 1976, and he's facing election in 1980, and he's defeated by Ronald Reagan. But there's a very interesting person we need to study. His name is Paul Volcker. He was the Federal Reserve's chairman who basically attacked the inflation problem. And the Volcker effect is that he said stubbornly, I will do what is good for the dollar. Now it looks as though that same thing Trump is trying to do. The only difference is that Trump is a politician. Volcker was an economist. So, where does this take the world? And that is the interesting question. That's why I want to connect it with what Jesus stated. So, whatever we think of the Bible, the scandal is something like this. The Jews had a king. We know him as David. David had a son, Solomon. He built a temple. And the temple got burned out by a king from Babylon. His name is Nebuchadnezzar. And during the time of Nebuchadnezzar, there was a young Hebrew boy who became very famous because we know the story. He was put in the lion's den, his friends were put into the fire. And I'm talking about Prophet Daniel. God gives him a vision of the future. And if you study that vision, on the 483rd year from that vision in Daniel chapter 9, we know from a particular event connected to the building of the walls of Jerusalem, the 483rd year, Jesus came into Jerusalem. And we know the rest of the story from the Bible. He was crucified. So now, before being crucified, Jesus took his disciples privately to the Mount of Olives, pointed to the temple. Herod rebuilt the temple and says, not one stone would be here, but I will come back in history. That is how he says, when the fig tree and the other trees blossom. So if you look at it from 1945 to 1973, more than 100 nations came into existence. So we don't know why. Suddenly the nations started, including India, including Israel, so many countries in the Middle East, Africa, all of them. So the nations, and Bible seems to say it's a garden of trees. So that is why there is a global picture emerging. And today's session I want to close in a particular way. Zechariah chapter 11 is one of those books written about 450 years before Jesus was crucified. He's a prophet who saw what the Babylonian captivity did to the people and the lowly temple that they rebuilt, that Herod rebuilt. So, this temple, all these details are in the book of Zechariah. Okay, in chapter 11, there is an interesting prophecy. The prophecy I believe I mentioned it the last session, is that I will give you a shepherd. He's a good shepherd, but you people will sell him for 30 pieces of silver. The next thing he says is, if you do that, I will give you a foolish shepherd. And this seems to be where the story is heading. There is a foolish shepherd who is going to come, control every transaction on this planet Earth at the end of his, whenever he announces himself as the peace giver in the Middle East. And that also is coming, peace in the Middle East. Nobody likes Hamas, by the way. I mean, I can tell you two names, but that's a distraction in today's session. I'm giving you an overarching picture saying that whatever the Bible seems to say seems to be happening in a particular way, very methodical, very systematic. And Netanyahu has restarted the war with Hamas. It doesn't matter what all these players do. People in Palestine are finally saying enough is enough. Two people, a man and a woman, both Palestinians, were killed by Hamas itself. I'll give the names next time because that would be a separate session dedicated to what is going on in Israel. This is what I want to tell you. By raising the tariff, in no time, Trump has warned China. You raise tariff again, it will be very destructive because I'm going to charge 50% more tariff. So it's becoming a tit for tat fight between Trump and the Chinese government. It's no more an economic problem, it has become a political problem. So that is why I'm saying at this point of time, the only person who knows the outcome does not live on this planet Earth. He rules the heavens and the earth. And he's basically saying, read the scriptures, get to know God seems to be really be involved in the current events. Is that a good place to stop? I can continue.
You you did a lot of yeah, lot of topics on this. And we actually went into a whole different new topic with the financial revolution or the financial reorganization topic, which we haven't discussed. And of course, this is the first live telecast on YouTube. And obviously, today we were not able to go live on Facebook. So that's interesting that we are on YouTube and we're doing this and a new topic. So, yeah, if you want to go ahead for another maybe 5 minutes, yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
So when you think about the West, the key thing people forget is from 1973 to 1979, there was a word created. That word is called petrodollar. See, in 1973, before the Yom Kippur War, dollar was one of the currencies. But when Israel fought back, defeated Egypt and Syria, the Middle Eastern oil producers raised the price of oil 3 times or something like that. And there's a lot of dollars coming into their coffers. So those dollars were called petrodollars, dollars made on petrol. That's what they were called. So that is what caused inflation in the West. So 73 to 1979, by the time Paul Volcker comes, there is one event we need to pay attention. I didn't say anything about it. That's called the Iranian Revolution. Ayatollah Khomeini comes back from France into Iran, and the reorganization of the Islamic world starts. So that event is today central to the fight that Israel is facing. In 1973, the war was between Israel and Egypt, Syria. I don't think the Lebanese joined. It was primarily an Egypt Syria war with Israel, and Israel went through a setback at the early part. So there are a lot of legendary stories about the 73 war. Now, they also conducted a serious review of what were the lapses What were the mistakes they made? And that is something in 2023 they need to do in Israel, saying, how did Hamas surprise Israel? The 50th anniversary of that. So there is a lot of material here to tell from October 7th, 2023 till now. If you look at it, Iran is the biggest loser in this current situation. Hamas has lost more than 50,000 people. Their area has been kind of destroyed, if I may use the word. Lebanon has lost big time. Syria, even more. And who is standing exposed with, everybody is telling the emperor has no clothes. And that is about Khamenei and Iran. And I'll tell this, it's a very sad fact. I mean, you would understand, Catherine. This is something that Kumar and I can tell that as a joke, but it is a real thing. $1, you will get about 85, 86, 87 rupees, whatever that is. But there is stability in the Indian economy. It was officially 45,000 riyals, Iranian riyals, a couple of years back. It went to 450,000. During this time, it went to 500,000 riyals. And as I know today, $1 is more than a million riyals in Iran. So the devastation that country is going through, and they are the ones who put money to rebuild Lebanon. The Hezbollah, the faction that supports the Iranian government, or Iran supports Hezbollah. Hezbollah is shattered because nobody is rebuilding. You know, Israel had a success like the Six-Day War, and yet the world is not acknowledging these events. So, therefore, I believe another round will come in no time. See, we need to be, man is not truthful in their historical narration. I am trying to tell, hey, Bible seems to be telling these events before they happen. And we don't know what the next pieces of the puzzle are. But one thing is very clear. Netanyahu and Trump seem to be very close to each other. And in that process, I think the world is getting reorganized. The West itself is being divided into two camps. That bothers me. And it should concern those who do financial analysis. Is that the good place to stop?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
I'm
good.
sure Catherine has some questions here.
Please, please.
Well, it's true what Kumar said about you have a different sort of approach into today's discussion. So we looked at everything through sort of an economic lens. And so much of what is happening, you really don't know how it's going to pan out. There's all these things going on, but and you're connecting how it could play out, but you really don't know how it's going to play out. Is that accurate?
So that's why I love this black book that I read almost daily. Uh, I call it the Bible. It's a library of 66 books. And a couple of things about this book is that long before it happens, tomorrow's headlines that will appear are written in the pages. If you know how to read the, the script together, what I really think Trump is extending the life of the dollar. That's what he's doing. But in the process, the world is being reorganized. So the liberal democracies are moving in one direction, and Trump seems to be moving away from the liberal democracies. He's my president. I'm a US citizen, and I definitely want the world to have peace. And I'm sitting there saying, um, it doesn't look like we are going to have a stable time. That is my concern.
Could you elaborate a little on the statement you made before? You mentioned, was it a Mr. Walker?
Paul Volcker.
Walker. And
Volcker.
you said that you suggested that you see that President Trump is kind of following that philosophy that he had, I will do what is good for the dollar. But you said the difference between them is one was an economist and the other is a politician. Could you speak into that a little bit more?
Great question. Great question. So I'll share a joke first because that's the only way I can answer the question. Uh, Karl Marx said that he is an economist. If I use that word, that he's an economist, he's the most stupid uh, of all economists because he thought once the workers' paradise of the communes, which eventually was called communists, came, they will take over the world. That's not what happened, right? Russia had to go through bankruptcy, USSR. On the other hand, China did something else. So Marx, as an economist, is a real failure. But here is why I respect Karl Marx. He is a historian, a super historian, a very dangerous one who negates the story in the Bible. So that's why I like to say, uh, like I think, Catherine, very politely you were saying, lay out a little more what is going to happen in the world, Trump and that's what you were asking. And I didn't give an honest answer. The reason why I didn't give an honest answer is ultimately, I told you, there's only one person who knows. He sits at the right hand of his father. And the father says, I will send him in the fullness of time to rule this planet Earth. Right now, I doubt even Mr. Trump, our president, or his friends know. So, depending on how the nations are going to react, the world economic order has been reorganized. It is not going to be reorganized. It has been reorganized. We don't understand what it looks like. Because ultimately, till Trump announced all this, the West always had a, they stood together, liberal democracies led by America, they all stood together. It makes no sense for America to declare what you call all these tariffs on Canada. You know, ultimately, the joke is they can also declare tariffs on us. Now, Trump doing that with China makes sense to me because all the money China gets, it puts into military. And that is the difference. So these are the complexities. I don't want to step into it because I don't have any power or control. I'm not connected with any government. All I'm saying is that I read the good book. When I say the good book, I talk about a man who was crucified. And then he comes back to his disciples. By the way, I told you, I have a baptism to take. I'm going to come back to rule this planet Earth. And that's why, as Christians, we put these stories together.
Mhm.
When you look at the stories, 1948, Israel coming back, it has never happened ever in human history. And I'm going to put my neck on the line when I say it will never happen again either. Because no people can trace the history 1,000 years back. No people, any part of the world. I mean, Kumar comes from one of the most distinguished civilizational bases. That's Tamil speaking, one of the oldest cultures in India. Is there anybody in Tamil Nadu who can go 1,000 years back?
I don't think so. I don't.
Ancestry, no. The Jews did. And the Bible says it will happen. So that's why, confidently, Catherine, I'm telling, whatever Trump is doing, the reorganization of the world in terms of economics is starting. And I want to profoundly make one more statement. In 1979, when Paul Volcker reorganizes American economy and he says, I will make sure this right steps would be taken, cost inflation to freeze in 2.5 years. A lot of Americans would give credit to Reagan for that. By 1982, the stubborn petrodollar inflation was brought under control. And ever since, US has expanded. Their dollar's strength has grown. All that we have to give credit to Paul Volcker. But what people don't understand, and that is the thing I want to explain. In 1979, an obscure Ayatollah from Iran went from Paris to Iran and started the Iranian Revolution. Guess what? That Iranian Revolution is directing Jewish history. Unfortunately, the Iranians don't know there is a God in heaven who has predicted how Jewish history would go. That's why I mentioned Daniel. That's why I mentioned Zechariah. And the man who said, I will conquer death, also insisted, one day I will come back. That is why we Christians, that includes Sister Catherine and you, Brother Kumar, and we are telling, wow, his words are real. That's all what we are saying. Now, I'm not blaming Trump, I'm not blaming Xi Jinping, Putin, anybody. I'm just telling the train seems to be coming into the station. That train is called the end of history. It's not the fall of Russia or fall of America. It is about Jesus coming back into history. Am I making sense?
Yes, I think for listeners who have been hearing, I think this is probably the first time they're hearing the whole thing. They probably would like to go more deeper on various topics. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll continue, and they can go back and watch some of our previous videos or in our Facebook group, Understanding Worldviews, where we've done a lot more discussions on this. And I would also like to bring up your books. So I will have a link of all those in the bio and in the videos here, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you,
Any,
Kumar.
you have any other questions, Catherine, for
Um,
today?
we can pick up the next time. When will the next time be, by the way?
Any day this week is good for me.
Okay,
Yeah, we're hoping to have it sometime this week, and we will keep it posted. Yep.
that sounds good.
Thank you very much.
It
And
would be good. I was just saying that perhaps when we get together, you can give us a little bit more of an update on what is happening in Gaza. I mean, you did say Israel had restarted the war, but maybe we could look into that a little bit more the next time.
Gladly, gladly.